Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Habits finally coming at you again. We are doing Unit 11 Day 2 notes today on factoring quadratic trinomials. Quadratic trinomials. Okay, so we've talked about quadratic trinomials before. Quad means four sides, means a square. So quadratic is anything where the highest exponent is a 2. So we've had x squareds. Trinomials means 3 terms. So the standard form for a quadratic trinomial that you've seen many times by now is ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is the quadratic term and the quadratic coefficient. This is the linear term and linear coefficient, and this is the constant. So for example, if I have 3x squared plus 4x minus 2, then my a value is equal to 3, my b value is equal to 4, and my c value, the constant, is equal to negative 2. So you're going to need to be able to identify these a, b, and c values today. Okay? And we're going to learn how to factor things that look like this. So you got to know what a factor is. So a factor is something, factors are things that you multiply together to get something else. So for example, if I tell you to factor, or if I ask you what are the factors of the number 6, I can do a little table like this, and I can start with number 1, and I'm like, okay, 1 times 6, those are factors of 6. 2 times 3, those are factors of 6. And then it kind of starts repeating itself. I go 3 times 2, and the next one is 6 times 1. So these are all of the factors of 6. So these guys right here are all factors of 6. They're all things I can multiply together to get 6. So today we're going to factor trinomials. We're going to break it down into what did we multiply together to get all this stuff. And so I'm going to tell you the steps for doing that first, and then I'm going to explain them. So these are the steps for doing what we're doing. So let's just get this down, and then they'll make more sense when we actually do an example. So step 1 is to find the GCF if it has one, and factor it out. Okay, so factor out the GCF. That's the first thing, and you learned how to do that last period. So find the GCF if it has one and factor it out. Okay. Second step is the new part. I'm going to call this Rainbow XT. This is just a way to do, this is just kind of a graphic organizer in order to factor trinomials. So we're going to call it the Rainbow XT method. So when I have a quadratic trinomial in this form, ax squared plus bx plus c, I'm going to take my rainbow value, I'm going to make a little rainbow over this from the a to the c. So my rainbow value is a times c. I'm going to multiply that, so a times c. And I'm going to make an x over here and a t over here. And again, these are just graphic organizers. So I've got my little rainbow, a times c, and that value is going to go up here on the top of my x, and it's going to go up here on the top of my t. So I did a times c, so I'm going to put a little times there to remind myself. That's my product term. Next, I have my b here. This is called my sum term, and I'm going to put my b down here at the bottom, and I'm going to put a little plus right there to identify it as my sum term. And then on the sides here, this is factor 1, and this is factor 2. Okay? So this will make more sense in a few minutes when I show you an actual example. So step 3 is to check your answer using box method. So after last period, you guys are pretty good at pulling out a greatest common factor, a GCF. And you guys, I know, are really good at doing the box method. So really the only new thing is this step 2 right here, which I'm going to show you today. So those are the steps for what we're doing. So now let me show you an example. So we have been giving you things like, let me give you a couple of factors here. We've been giving you things like x plus 2, x plus 4, and we've been asking you to multiply those together using the box to actually get the quadratic trinomial. So let's just do that, just so we're on the same page here. So if I multiply those, I'm going to draw my little box out, and I'm going to go x plus 2, and I'm going to go x plus 4, and you guys are really good at this. So you get x squared here, and 2x here, and 4x here, and 8 here. And I'm going to have to add up or sum up these middle terms right here. Remember this big old plus sign in the middle here, telling you to add those terms up. So what I get when I multiply those is x squared, and then I sum up 4x plus 2x, which is 6x, and then I have my plus 8. So these are the two factors, this one and this one, that give me this quadratic trinomial. Well, today we're going to give you the quadratic trinomial, and we're going to tell you to factor it, which means to give us these two little parentheses and what's inside of them. So we're going to do that by using the rainbow XT method. So let me move this up a little bit. And I know that you already know the factors of this because I gave you the factors. But let's just take this, this wasn't one as an example. And we know we're going to get these factors as the answer, but let's just take this as an example of using the rainbow XT, okay? So if I tell you to take this and factor it, what that means is I'm going to get an answer at some point that looks like this. I don't know what's in these two little parentheses right there, but those are going to be the factors. Now we know this is the answer, but let me just show you how to get it. So I have ax squared plus bx plus c. Now my a value is what's in front of the x squared. And if there's nothing there, I always just kind of draw a little dotted 1 because I got to remember the a value is 1. That's 1x squared. My b value is 6. It's my sum, and I call it my sum term because I summed up the two middle terms to get that term. That's my sum term. And then my c value is 8. Okay, so you got to be able to identify a, b, and c. Now let's do the rainbow XT. So let's draw our x and our t. Now looking up here, when I do the rainbow, I do a times c, and I put that value here and here. So a times c, if I draw my rainbow, is 1 times 8. So my product term, 8, goes here and here, and I'm going to put a little multiplication symbol up there to remind myself that that's the product term. Now this guy down here is the sum term, and that's the b. Remember, he goes down at the bottom of the x. And I'm going to put a little, not a b, sorry, it's a 6. 6. And I'm going to put a little plus sign down here to remind myself that that's the sum term. This little table is to get my factors. So I need factors that multiply to give me 8. So they multiply to give me 8. They add to give me 6. I got to find those numbers. So if I have an 8 here, sometimes it's going to come into your head right away. You're going to know what the factors are. But if you don't, always start with the number 1 and say, like, 1 times what gives me 8? Well, 1 times 8 gives me 8. Does 1 plus 8 give me 6? No. All right, so let's go to the next factor. 2 times 4. 2 times 4 gives me 8. Does 2 plus 4 give me 6? Yes. So these are my factors. I have a 2 here and a 4 here. These are my two numbers that I need. And now I've got my answer. I've got a positive 2 and a positive 4, so my answer is x plus 2, x plus 4. These are my factors. That's my answer. So I could check that using the box method, but we kind of already know that's the answer because that's what we started with. So we know that this is our answer. So let's go ahead and do a couple of examples here. Let me change pieces of paper and come back up here. So let's write example 1. So example 1, I'm going to do 2x squared plus 20x plus 42. And I'm going to do 3 examples with you. So this is the first example. So if you remember, step 1 is to factor out the GCF if there is one. So if you remember from last class period, what we did was factor trees on all of these A, B, and C. So factor tree for 2, honestly, 2 is already a prime number, so I'm just going to circle that. And then I've got 20 here. 20, I can say is 4 times 5. You could say it's 2 times 10. We're all going to come out with the same answer. 5 is prime. 4, I can come down further with 2 times 2, and now I've got all prime numbers here. So now let's go to 42. So 42, what pops into my head first is 6 times 7. You could do 21 times 2. You're going to get the same answer that I'm going to get at the end. 7 is already prime, so I'm going to circle that. And then 6 I can break down to 2 times 3. So I've got all these prime numbers here. And then we wrote our answer in the form of, pull out the GCF. This is the GCF right here. And then we're going to just put the trinomial with the same signs as it had before. So we're going to figure out our trinomial now that we pulled out the GCF. So we wrote the 2x squared here, and we said that's equal to the factor 2 times x, because that's x squared. And then for the 20x, we look at all of our factors. I've got 2 times 2 times 5 times x. And then for my 42, my factors are 2 times 3 times 7. So I've got 2 times 3 times 7. So if we look at what they all have in common, the only thing they have in common here is a 2. So that is my GCF. That's my GCF right there. So I'm going to put the 2 out front, and I'm going to write what's left in each of the terms. So x times x is x squared. 2 times 5 times x is 10x. And 3 times 7 is 21. So this is my new quadratic trinomial that I have to factor. Now some of you are just going to be able to look at this and say, oh, 2 is my greatest common factor. I'm going to divide that out there and get a 1. I'm going to divide 2 out of here and get a 10. I'm going to divide 2 out of here and get a 21. If you can see it and you don't have to do all this, that's great. But if not, this is a great graphic organizer way to do this. So now I'm going to go ahead and write my answer at the bottom with my GCF and my 2 factors. Because I got to keep in mind what I'm doing. Begin with the end in mind. The end is I got to get the factors of this trinomial. So now I'm going to cover up the GCF because I already factored it out. So now all I have to do is factor this. So I'm going to do my rainbow XT. Okay. So remember, I've got a little 1 right here as my A value now. So I'm going to go A times C is 21. So I'm going to put 21. That's my product term, and I'm going to put 21 over here. Can y'all see that? Yes, you can. Okay, my sum term is a 10, so I'm going to put that down here. I've got to have it add up to 10. So let's say we have no idea what the factors of 21 are. So let's just start with 1. 1 times 21 equals 21. Does 1 plus 21 equal 10? No. I can't use 2 because I can't divide 21 by 2 evenly, but I can use 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 plus 7 is 10. So I found my factors. So my factors are 3 and 7. That's my answer. X plus 3, X plus 7. So this right here is my final answer. And you can do box method on these to make sure that you get what you started with. I'm not going to take time in the video to do that, but you can always do that and then multiply what you get at the end by 2. And make sure you get what you started with. Okay? So that's one example. Now let's try another example. Got 2 more. This next one, x squared minus 25. All right, now that's kind of weird because there's no middle term. If there's no middle term, I can rewrite it like this. X squared plus, well, there's no x's there, so I'm going to say 0x minus 25. There aren't any x's, so I'm just going to put that there as kind of a placeholder to remind me. So now I can do my rainbow XT, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. This is a 1, so my rainbow 1 times negative 25 is negative 25, so that goes top of my x, top of my t. And my sum term, when there's nothing there, my sum term is 0. So I'm going to put 0 down here at the bottom, and that's my sum term. I got my product term and my sum term. So let's say we can't think of any factors of 25, so I'm going to, of negative 25, so I'm going to start with 1. So 1, that has to be times negative 25. Well, 1 times negative 25 equals negative 25. 1 plus negative 25 does not equal 0, so that doesn't work. So the next thing I can't divide by 2, can't divide by 3, can't divide by 4. My next one I can divide by is 5. So to get negative 25, I have 5 times negative 5 equals negative 25. 5 plus negative 5 equals 0. So these are my factors. So I can write down my answer. I have a plus, sorry, I didn't write it up here. I have a plus 5 and I have a minus 5. So I have x plus 5, x minus 5. And that's my answer. If you check that using the box method, you'll see that you end up with x squared minus 25. And do you remember what we called this? That's right, we called it a difference of perfect squares because x squared is a perfect square and 25 is a perfect square. So anytime, you guys that recognize patterns really well, anytime you have a difference of squares, your factors are going to be the same number, opposite signs. Okay? It's just a little pattern to stick in your back pocket. One more example. Example 3. So we're going to do the whole shebang on this one and then we will call it quits. So the next one here is 3x squared minus 6x minus 24. Now some of you can see what the GCF is right off the bat, but let's go ahead and see if we can pull a GCF out. Anytime there's a number in front of the x squared, there may be a GCF. There might not be, which we'll see next class, but today if there's a number out there in front, you're probably going to have a GCF. So let's look at the signs. I've got negatives between all the terms. So I've got term 1 and a negative, and term 2 and a negative, and term 3. So my answer when I pull the GCF out is going to be in that same form. So I'm going to factor this out. So I've got a 3, that's prime. I'm going to factor my 6. 2 times 3, those are both prime. 24, the first thing that comes into my head is 8 times 3. You could do 6 times 4, 12 times 2, whatever comes into your head first, but you're going to get the same answer as I am eventually. So there's a 3, and then I'm going to go 4 times 2, and there's a prime number. And then I'm going to go 2 times 2, and there's a prime number. All right, so I've got it all factored out, so let me do my little graphic organizer over here. 3x squared is equal to 3 times x times x. 6x is 2 times 3 times x. 2 times 3 times x. And then 24 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. The only thing they all have in common is this one little 3 right here. So the 3 is my common factor. It is my GCF. So pull that out front. And what I have left is x times x is x squared. Second term, I have a 2 times x. So that's minus 2x. Third term, I have 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2 is 8. So now that's my new trinomial. So let's finish it up with the rainbow xt. So we've already pulled out the GCF, so I'm going to cover it up. And I'm going to do my little x and my little t. I'm going to do my rainbow. Remember there's a 1 right here now because we pulled out the GCF. So 1 times negative 8 is negative 8 on the top, negative 8 right here. That's my product term. Negative 2 is my sum term on the bottom. So I need factors of negative 8 that add up to negative 2. So let me start with my 1 times negative 8. 1 minus 8 does not equal negative 2, so that's not going to work. How about 2 times negative 4? 2 plus negative 4 does give me negative 2, so those are my factors. So my final answer, let me write my factors here, 2 and negative 4. So my final answer is x plus 2, x minus 4. Oh, I made a common mistake. I forgot to write my answer format first, so I forgot to put my GCF out front. If you just give the factors without the GCF, it is incorrect. The final answer has a GCF if you pulled one out. All right, ladies and gents, I hope that you understood what I'm talking about and that you have fun on your assignment. Take care.